Chapter 23, Part 2. Yet I must be honest, as my husband and sons have always been. The tannery cannot be blamed for every misfortune we suffered, tannery or not. The land might have been taken from us. It had never belonged to us. We had never prospered to the extent where we could buy, and Nathan himself, the son of a landless man, had inherited nothing. And whatever extraneous influence the tannery may have exercised, the calamities of the land belong to it now, born of wind and rain and weather, immensities not to be tempered by man of his creations. To those who live by the land, there must always come times of hardship, of fear, and of hunger, even as there are years of plenty. This is one of the truths of our existence, as those who live by the land know that sometimes we eat and sometimes we starve. We live by our labors from one harvest to the next. There is no certain telling whether we shall be able to feed ourselves and our children, and if bad times are prolonged, we know we must see the weak surrender their lives, and this fact, too, is within our experience. In our lives, there is no margin for misfortune. Still, there was land, there was hope. Nothing now, nothing whatever. My being was full of the husks of despair, dry, lifeless. I went into the hut and looked about me. Brown mud walls that had crumbled many a time and been rebuilt many a time. Coconut thatching, some of it still part of the old palm lightning, had destroyed, as I could tell from the color. Bare, beaten floor of baked mud, hardened with dung wash. This home my husband had built for me with his own hands, and the time he was waiting for me brought me to it with a pride which I used to better living had so very nearly crushed. In it we had lain together and our children had been born. This hut with all its memories was to be taken from us, for it stood on the land that belonged to another, on the land itself by which we lived. It is a cruel thing, I thought. They do not know what they do to us. When Selvum came home that night from his studies, my husband broke the news to him. I do not know what I expected, indignation, anger, perhaps sorrow, but he betrayed no emotion. He put the books he was carrying in the wooden crate he had made. Then he sat down, still keeping his own counsel. The wavering light from the wick in its saucer of oil fell on his face, somber and serious as it always was in repose. Well, I thought this cannot affect me, affect the life he had chosen, and so he is tranquil. And then I reminded myself that he was ever like this, that he seldom spoke until he had paused to reflect, and I felt ashamed. In brooding silence, I heard Nathan shift his position again, and I thought, naturally, he is impatient. He has a good cause. We have 2 weeks before we leave, I said. They have agreed to let us stay till then. You think that is good of them? Selvum said, his voice hard and sharp like crystals. He lifted his eyes to mine. I saw they were black and smoldering as if some deep flame of anger or hatred burned in them. Nathan made reply for me. It is better than being sent out at once, as others have been. Selvum turned on his father. You have accepted it. You have made no protest. What option do I have, my son? Naturally, I protested, but it has availed me nothing. It is not just, Selvum said. It is not right. Yet there is no law against it, said Nathan wearily. We may grieve, but there is no redress. Where will you go? We must go to Murgon. He has a good job. I am sure he will welcome his parents. It is a long way. With respect, you are not as young or as fit as you were. Yet the effort must be made, said Nathan, for we cannot live except by the land, for I have no other knowledge or skill. And as you say, I am getting on, and for me it would be impossible to find another landlord, who indeed would rent his land To such as I am, past hard labor and uncertain of paying what I owe. His words pierced me, hardened though I was, realist as I wished to be. Do not say those things, I said. I cannot bear to hear them. They are true. Whether they are true or not, I cried, I will not have you saying them. I would not distress you, Nathan said quietly. Yet we must not face the truth so that we can make our decisions. Have I told you anything you do not know yourself? No, I thought desolately, but I could not say it. Could not. I closed my eyes and I felt his hands on my temples where the pulses beat, gently stroking, soothing me in the only way he could. He suffered for me, not so much for himself, and I likewise, so that although together there was more strength, there was also more suffering, and if each had been alone, the way might not have seemed so hard. Yet I knew neither could have been borne it alone. Thus confused, my mind turned this way and that like a paper kite, dipping to every current of air, unsure of its own meanings. At length, in the midst of the blackness, I heard Selvum speaking, and I opened my eyes. He seemed to be struggling with himself, for the words did not come easily, and the fierce inner battle he waged had brought the sweat out on his forehead and left his lips dry. He was addressing his father alone, no doubt. He dismisses me as a hysterical woman, I thought. He's not far wrong. I can always return to the land, he was saying. I am young and able-bodied. Together we can rent another piece of land, live as we did. I saw my husband's eyes kindle. I saw in them fearfully the light of hope. You should not have said it, I cried silently to my son. It is too difficult for him, cruelly difficult, but already. Nathan was shaking his head. No, my son, I would not have it so. He spoke resolutely. There are some things that cannot be sacrificed. Besides, I would never be happy. Certainly your mother would not let me rest, he added, smiling a little. No, we must go. Ira and Sakrabani must come with us. Of course, there is nothing for them here. I will stay, said Ida, whom we had supposed asleep, and she rose and came and knelt beside her father. I will not be a burden to you. I am happy enough here. People are used to me and my son. I cannot start a new life now. If I can, said Nathan, whose youth is only a memory now. Why should not you, my child? You are very young. It will not be difficult for you. I must think of my son, she replied. How will you eat? I said. Where will you live? If she decides to stay, said Selvum, she will be with me. I will look after her. I swear it. And the child? And the child, of course. Is it possible? Nathan asked. Is it little enough you have for yourself? Do I not know it? Said Selvum bitterly. It is perpetual shame to me that I have nothing to offer my parents, yet I promise they shall not go in need. If it had not been so late at night, if we had been less tired and dispirited, we might have argued with Ida, partly for her sake and partly for Selvum's. As it was, we said no more. Not that night at any rate, although subsequently we had more discussion than I can recount, excepting only that we were to go and that our children and grandchild were to stay.